So today we have with us Benjo Jose, who has secured rank 59 and is amongst the highest scorer in anthropology, where he has secured 303 marks in this year's anthropology optional. And his breakup is something like in paper 1 he has 164 marks, and in paper 2 he has 139 marks. So it's a great feat, Benjo, and I think you have done really well in anthropology. So when did this thought of taking anthropology as optional come into your mind? Because you had mathematics in your graduation at the Stephens College. So why did you choose anthropology in the first place?
So I chose anthropology primarily because of two reasons. Number one was interest.
Of course.
I really liked the subject of anthropology. It has so many things in that.
Okay.
It had, at the one hand, human evolution. I was interested in understanding about human evolution.
Okay.
It had physical anthropology in that, which has some relation to biology. In 12th, I was a bio student.
Okay.
And it also had the opportunity to draw, right? And I used to like...
You are good at diagrams. And things.
Diagrams. It also had institutions like religion, and I am interested, in sort of ways, philosophy, theology, and all of these things.
Okay.
So it had religion, it had political systems, it had all
Economic
of these
systems.
things. Economic systems. So it is a very
Diverse subject for that
subject.
matter, yeah.
So I was really drawn to it, number one. Number two, when I decided, I was on this path to decide
The optional subject.
the optional subject. A lot of toppers were coming from Andhro, right? AR1, Duri Shetty sir.
Yeah.
Next year there was Akshat Jain sir. Then after that, I think somebody else. And then after that, Shubham Kumar.
Yeah.
So people were consistently coming with Andhro optional, and 300, 320, 310. Last year again, 325, 310, a lot of people. So that is how I decided to take Anthro. Interest and marks.
So this year also one of your colleagues who will be your colleague in the services,
Yes.
Siddharth, he is also from Kerala.
Yes.
And he has also secured 326 marks.
Yes.
So is it something about Kerala and scoring good marks in anthropology?
No, I think, sir, Kerala is a new entrant in anthropology, because traditionally, if you see, everybody else is scoring.
Okay.
People from Kerala were not really interested in anthropology because, again, Kerala, not enough guidance and not enough mentorship is there for anthropology. But in the recent years, people have switched to anthropology in Kerala as well. Maybe that is why.
But in fact, there is only one state which publishes the anthropology textbooks for 11th and 12th class.
Yes.
Because you don't have any NCRTs for anthropology.
Yes.
The Kerala state only publishes the SCRT books of 11th and 12th class. And I think they are a very good starter for anybody who wants to begin the anthropology.
Yes, for a beginner.
These two are really very good books.
Correct.
Coming to the cliches in anthropology, that anthropology is a small subject. Anthropology requires a lot of mugging. And somebody needs to have a background in biology or in science to have the anthropology. What is your take on these cliched questions?
Okay. So, number one is that there is a lot of mugging up in anthropology. There is some amount of mugging up, but that amount of mugging up is there in everywhere. It is there in GS.
every other option.
It is inevitable. It is there in GS. It is there in every other option.
Oh, yes.
Right? We need to mug up committee names and everything. So, mugging up is there. But the amount or the extent of mugging up that people think anthropology has, that is
not
just
true.
that is not true. It is वो अफवाह फैला रहा है कि बहुत सारे है उसमें इतना नहीं है.
It has just become a common kind of thing कि हाँ कि ऐसा ही है. वो stereotyping of the discipline.
Correct. So see, again, like I said earlier also, I am not a very big fan of memorization.
Okay.
If I sit with things to memorize, I might be able to do it, but I take time to memorize.
Okay.
And I just do not want to memorize and mug up without understanding. So I was a person who did not give that much importance to mugging up and rote learning and memorization.
Yes.
So I did suffer in some of those questions. Like if a question on race comes, what are the features of this race in anthropology?
Okay.
I will not attempt that question because I do not know. Right? Very difficult for me to mug.
Or Risley's racial classification.
Yes.
So all these points you have to list them down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Difficult for me. Same thing with languages. This time, paper 2, there was the Dravidian languages question. I did not know what to write in the answer. I mean, I knew basic, very, very basic. But I wrote a below average answer for that.
In that question.
Because again, I did not want to memorize.
Okay. I think during your preparation, you have made it a point that I'll not memorize anything unless I understand
it. Understand it.
Yeah.
maybe even the Dravidian languages I could understand and then memorize, but then time bhi bahut kam tha ki, and there were other areas such as theories and everywhere where
Which are pretty interesting and conceptual in nature.
Yes, conceptual. So when I learn theories, or when I learn physical anthropology, when I learn even Indian anthropology concepts such as caste or village studies
Or tribes,
or tribes, ethnicity, these are concepts. I just need to know them once, just, and then thinker names, book names, concepts will just come automatically.
They will come automatically to you.
I don't have to memorize. So it is a myth that you have to memorize everything in anthropology. Number one, there are certain elements, but you could pick and choose, in my opinion.
Okay.
Also, archaeology is an area where people think that you need to memorize.
Yeah, it is more about mugging. People think it that
People think it is mugging up. But again, if you have a very structured narrative or a story to learn archaeology, there is nothing to mug up. Because everything is very conceptual. Right from how to flint nab, how to make Stone Age technology, to Neolithic axes and axes, everything has a very
how the
logical...
culture has evolved from lower to middle to upper.
Yes. It is a very logical flow. If you understand the logical flow, there is nothing to
And
mug up.
ultimately, what is unfolding in this optional, that is anthropology, which is the study of the man, to make it more simpler, is basically the story of the man.
Yes, correct.
Like how the story has unfolded.
Correct.
That is what this discipline aims at understanding.
Correct.
And if the story is clear to you, then I think all these parts of mugging and will not be that difficult for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they'll come automatically to you, right? So, if we study that, there is something called Bloom's taxonomy. I think we talked about that last time. Bloom's taxonomy is the best way to study. Usme the top thing is to create and to make new things and to be very conceptually aware.
Yeah.
The base of it, or the least interesting part, is mugging up and learning data. But the interesting part about the taxonomy is that if you are creating stuff pehle se hi, if you are understanding things conceptually, if you are applying things very quickly, then data and facts will come automatically to you.
Like we study in anthropology, where the human child requires more of care. And in that, play becomes a very important part. So which is like playing with the content, playing with the ideas, playing with the concepts, and then applying them.
Yes.
And that is, I think, the best way of learning.
Yes. And when you apply that, all of the small nitty-gritties and the details will come automatically.
Yeah.
You don't have to mug up ki this thinker has written this book and this year, everything. These things will come.
I've seen students in anthropology coming to us and coming to me and asking कि ये याद करके चले जाएं क्या? Of course, there is some amount of mugging is everywhere in UPSC.
Correct.
But without understanding, how will you be able to reproduce them in the 6 hours?
Correct.
It is not possible, right? If it is not internalized properly by understanding and applying the concepts. So first part was, is mugging important? Second question would be, does somebody need to have the background in biology? Because you see, the optional is being offered to all kinds of students in UPSC. Is it any cliche that you need to have a background in biology, or did you need biology till 12th class to take this option?
No, sir, I do not think so. Anybody could take this optional, because again, you're not studying biology in biological anthropology.
Exactly.
You're studying physical anthropology, which is entirely different from biology. So, yes, there are certain elements of molecular biology, such as genetics or population studies.
It draws from different subjects, the discipline of anthropology.
Yes, but then anthropology itself is a very holistic thing. It is not limited to biology. It is much greater than that.
It has a idea of its own.
Yes, correct. So, yes, you need to understand basics of the central dogma of molecular biology. You need to understand what is recombination. You need to understand what is, how does DNA convert into RNA, translation, everything you need to understand. But that is it.
And I think you need to learn them for the science and technology part also.
Yes, correct.
In the general studies.
Correct. So, as such, biology is not a requirement for physical anthropology, because what you study in physical anthropology is much greater than that. Let's take an example. Epidemiological anthropology, anthropology of diseases. Even a doctor who has studied, pharmacogenetics, or somebody who's done all of this PhD,
has a background in medical science.
Still, they would still have to read again, right? Because epidemiological anthropology is entirely new. And again, in epidemiological anthropology, you need to bring not biologists or molecular biologist or epidemiologist, but anthropologist.
Anthropologists. Yeah.
How do anthropologists see diseases? How does this whole socio-cultural anthropology fit into epidemiology? How does archaeology and ethnoarchaeology, for that matter, fit into it? So it is not a requirement that you need to have biology in your 12th to take up.
And the third cliched question that we get is anthropology a small discipline compared to all of the other optionals?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Yes, that is what I feel.
So I initially started with the same
This notion
intention.
only.
With the same intention. See, there one was interest, second was marks, third was because I had a mathematics, background. I thought of maths, and everybody was telling me maths बहुत बड़ा optional है, anthropology बहुत छोटा optional है. So that's why I took anthropology. But then I realized that anthropology is not a small optional. It is not, it is a force to reckon with, right? It is not a,
It requires the same rigors that you need to follow in the other optionals.
In every other optional. So I currently feel it might require anywhere between 5 to 7 months or 8 months for proper preparation.
For proper preparation.
Yes. So it needs to be balanced along with your GS if you're studying GS, or it needs to be, some of it needs to be done before you actually read GS. Right. Because number one, see, mugging, so the cliche, I'll tell you how this whole notion has come up. I think the 3-month ka funda came up when people said ki, okay, I just have to mug up this one topper ka book. Usually it's Vivek Basme sir's book or Akshay Jain sir's book. And then they tell you, isko mug up karne ke liye mujhe bas 3 mahine chahiye aur isliye anthropology chota hai. Absolutely not.
200 number लाने के लिए ठीक है. But not for 300 marks, right?
Correct. So you need to know what is conceptually correct in anthropology. And that you will not get by mugging up. उसके लिए first conceptually समझ करना पड़ेगा, understand it first conceptually, then make notes. I think making notes
without understanding, if you are just copying the notes, there's no point of
no point. Then make notes, then value add, right? Add your value again after conceptually understanding things. Then try to apply, write test. This requires 5 to 7 months.
Yes.
So there is no exaggeration in saying that anthropology is not a small optional. I would say it's a big optional.
And you have scored so good marks in this year's exam, and you have invested a lot of time in understanding this optional. So I think that is what has made you score such good marks.
Correct.
Without that kind of understanding, I think nobody can score 300 marks.
It is accumulated knowledge, right? Over my 4 attempts, I was still working on anthropology. And I'll tell you something. We talked about this. This year, when the results came, I was still reading archaeology. I had bought D.K. Bhattacharya, either Indian prehistory. I was reading it. I started with Paleolithic, and because archaeology was not very my forte, not very strong with it, because again so thoda memorization उसमें भी था, तो because बहुत सारे sites हैं, मतलब निवासा में
बहुत सारे कल्चर मद्रास यूनिवर्सिटी ये वो,
so उसमें mugging up था, तो I was not very strong with it. But then for my 5th attempt I did buy that book and I was preparing. So वो value, वो continuous process,
regular effort that goes on. Then another issue that comes up is, should we focus more on physical? Should we focus more on socio-cultural? While attempting the questions in the exam, should we focus on physical anthropology? I think this is already UPSC has done away with this, because they are mixing the questions now.
Correct.
In the three parts that every question has.
Every question
2 will be from physical, 1 will be socio-cultural, or 2 socio-cultural, 1 physical.
1 definitely will be archaeology also.
Yes. Right. So this is out. So what about this kind of notion that more physical, more socio-cultural?
So first of all, earlier there was this notion that physical is a science, and so if you write science, you'll get 100% marks. Not really. Physical anthropology is not. Yes, it is scientific.
Yes.
But it is still anthropology, right?
Yeah.
So even if you write some biological aspects in that, if you do not write anthropological aspects,
you'll not get good marks there.
You would do, if you do not connect with socio-cultural, you will not get marks. So that is the first thing. So this whole fetish behind physical anthropology being very scoring, gone out of the window. I personally am not a very big fan of physical anthropology or archaeology, which are considered by many others as the best scoring. I was more interested in sociocultural. But if you write good answers in sociocultural, you'll still score marks there.
And you got 164 in paper 1.
Paper 1.
And you were telling that you attempted more of the sociocultural questions,
Yes.
like the controversy regarding the Malinowski and Margaret Mead's fieldwork.
Yes.
Or the
Arjun Appadurai.
Or the Arjun Appadurai on globalization.
Yes.
All these questions, you attempted them.
Yes.
And because maybe you had a very good understanding of these topics, the examiner was also impressed because it looks more anthropological
Yes.
per se.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe, giving over importance to physical anthropology for scoring marks is that era is gone. I think that era is gone. So my suggestion would be to give equal importance to everything, right? Right from archaeology to physical anthropology to sociocultural anthropology to Indian anthropology. Again, in Indian anthropology, be very specific. Let's go to caste studies. Do caste in a very holistic way. Go to village studies. Do village in a very holistic way. Rather than just studying Sanskritization, Westernization, or ho gaya. Nahi, that is not the thing. In tribal anthropology, people just study tribal problems and they think that tribal anthropology is done. No. They also study tribal policies. They think it is done. No. There is tribe and ethnicity. There is tribe and nation state.
Nation state.
There is how nation and policies impact tribals. There was a question this time.
Yes.
How in independent India or how policies impact tribals. So all of this needs to be done, right? I think 90 to 100% of syllabus needs to be complete when you go for the exam, and I think every part is equally scoring.
Yes.
No part is less scoring. If you bring in thinkers, if you bring in quality content, you would score anywhere.
So you've been talking about the thinkers part of it. So what is the importance of the thinkers in any optional, and for that matter in anthropology? Because anthropology, what happens is majority of the people who are preparing, because first they have the bias of physical anthropology, and then because they think that in the social culture the thinkers are a bit different phenomena from the institutions that you're studying or the paper 2 that you're studying. You need not know much thinkers. So what's the importance of the thinkers per se? We all know that, but I think people who are listening to us, they should know the importance of the thinkers. Yes.
Correct. So initially when people come, they compartmentalize everything. They think that theories, chapters, unit.
And I think all this is because everybody's looking for a shortcut.
Yes.
And UPSC is not at all about shortcuts.
Correct. Yeah. So they compartmentalize and they think that, okay, unit 6 is different and let me just do unit 6. And
some people even skip it.
Yes.
Just do the initial thinkers, evolutionism, diffusionism, and then the last wala part to pata hi nahi hai ki what is all this symbolism or postmodernist.
Yes. So if you do like that, then when questions like controversies regarding Mead and Malinowski come, you have no idea, right? Because it has a lot to do with research methods, chapter 8. Right, how Malinowski did research, how Mead did research, what was the problem with the research, what was... So there's again participant observation when we read, when observance or external participants are there is garrulous individuals, reticent, all of these differences we'll understand when we read chapter 8. But but that is research methods. But that is connected to what these anthropologists have themselves done in the field.
Yeah.
So this is connected. Everything is connected. Similarly, let's go to any other thing. Let's say marriage. And all of the thinkers that are there in the unit 6, they might have done something about marriage.
They have always talked about marriage.
Yes,
most of them.
Yes. So people just do not know. They compartmentalize everything and they just say, okay, 2 to 5 is socio-cultural, let me just do that. And usme 6 ke saath koi connection nahi hai. But I really think that unit 6 is the base for everything. If you study the theories, if you understand the philosophy
in fact, these can be applied in paper 2 also.
Correct.
Yeah, this is a nature, man, spirit complex paper. So, which is nothing but cultural ecology only.
Exactly.
And cultural ecology, if the concept is clear, you can apply it there.
Yes. So that sacred, profane and uske baad there was one other concept. So LP Vidyarthi came up with nature, man, spirit. But then before that there was some thinker who came up with a similar concept. Again, sacred, complex and all of that. So these things are organically linked. I think D.N. Majumdar himself said that when LP Vidyarthi came up with nature, man, spirit complex, it is similar to some other thinker. But there is that connection there also. But no, we just study nature, man, spirit in isolation. We just think that, okay, what is nature, man, spirit? Nature is forest, man is man, spirit is religion. That is No.
Like the whole point of continuums in the paper too. The folk urban, the tribe caste, right? So all these continuums, they're all linked. And if you just write up, when you're writing about tribe caste continuum without mentioning about Robert Redfield, then it's a redundant exercise.
Yes.
Yeah, and it is not going to fetch you good marks. It's not anthropological per se.
Yes.
When you're talking about this thing. So I think theories are really the base of this subject.
They form the base of everything.
In fact, even in physical now, they've started to ask about thinkers.
Yes.
Like they asked the contribution of Jane Goodall, right? And the archaeologists. So they've started asking those questions now.
Yes. So now anybody who do not have like a graduate level understanding of anthropology would find it very. Anybody who's just mugging up from a topper note will find it very difficult to write. You need to have understanding.
You need to have an understanding. That's the base of it.
Yes, the bird's eye view.
Yeah. Then case studies. It's another buzzword in anthropology. And everybody is looking after so many unique case studies कि मैं newspaper से ढूंढ लूँगा. And I have figured out resources for case studies without even understanding where to apply these case studies or use these case studies. And you already have so many works done by these anthropologists that you study in the theory part. And if you know them, I think that you can use those case studies very easily.
Correct.
And their work is, I think, the most authentic work.
Correct.
In terms of the case studies.
Correct.
So what is this race behind the case studies?
सर ये भी मतलब एक अफवाह फैला रखा है मिथ क्रिएटेड की केस स्टडीज डालो एंड माइंडलेसली डू केस स्टडीज
Mindlessly doing the case studies is wrong. Of course, case studies is important, no doubt about it.
Correct.
But you already have so many.
So you just find 100 random case studies and make a list of it and then use it according to your own discretion. No, that is
this does not work.
And secondly, let's think about case studies. What are case studies actually? What do you write in a case study? It is just that there would be a thinker, there would be it would be connected to some portion of the syllabus.
Yes.
They would have done something in that portion, right? That is all the three things that you require. This is available everywhere because let's say Trobriand Islanders Malinowski. Malinowski ka the whole thing that he did in Trobriand Islands, you could write it as a case study.
Yeah.
Nobody is stopping you.
It's a case study.
Yes.
Yeah.
Similarly, let me talk about WHR Rivers or AC Haddon. They had their whole Torres Strait expedition.
Yes.
Very famous. That could be written as a case study. Now, Rivers, in fact, worked in Todas. Right?
Yeah, Todas.
Yeah, he worked among Todas.
That
That could be written as a case study.
Yes.
Right? You don't have to come up with new things every now and then. But there is another thing. In Indian anthropology, or not in Indian anthropology, in tribal anthropology, specifically tribal problems, everybody writes the same Khisaputta Akshat Jain's book का case study कि कोई रस्तोगी हो गया उसका case study है malnutrition में and everybody is writing that. तो उसके लिए yes definitely find something new. So that you will get by Google searching or
yeah, of course. Your research has to be strong.
Very simple. So what I used to do that is there's a website called Shodhganga.
Shodhganga, yeah.
So I researched for it has a lot of health related case studies.
Okay.
Again, very recent ones and from Indian universities.
Context,
Indian universities itself.
Universities.
Jamia Millia, Kerala University, or Delhi University, Punjab University. They are doing all of these research. That is a case study that could be said. And then in other areas, let's say in political anthropology or economic anthropology, a lot of, if I come across a tribe, just say we were talking about the Kung tribe. And when I come across the Kung tribe, they have very specific things to do about marriage. There are certain shamans, certain religious functionaries in them. When I'm writing a answer about religion, I could just write about Ikung and this special type of thing that they do. That is a case study.
That's a case study, yeah.
So this case study thing, you need to collect 100 case studies and just randomly apply. That is not the case.
I think the whole problem is making and perceiving things to be pretty mechanical.
Yes.
And they are not actually mechanical.
No.
The UPSC is not about making it more mechanical. It is about understanding. The UPSC itself says in the notification, be more analytical in approach rather than just mugging up the information. And I think that's clearly mentioned before the mains exam syllabus. And most of the people skip that part. They directly look onto the topics in the syllabus rather than the essence of what UPSC is expecting from a candidate.
Yes.
So that's missing in most of the parts.
So this whole case study thing, first of all, when I was first coming to case study, to answer writing or anthro, I didn't know what case study is. Because in the research methods, chapter 8, case study is something else entirely. Case study is an entire ethnographic account that we do.
Account of a tribe or a particular
Yes,
community. Yeah.
Yes, that is not the case study that we are doing here.
No.
It is just an example. So case study / example could be, it could be collected from anywhere. There is no.
And why run after here and there when you have the standard sources?
Yes.
To take these examples.
Lot of examples, like you said, are there in Ember and Ember.
There are all these examples of Kung, the Sivais of North Pacific.
Yes.
All of them are there.
Yes.
Right? The Roy Rappaports,
Pig Feast.
Pig Feasts, and all these are a part of them.
Yes.
Okay, it's a great insight into this. Anything else that you wanted to share about anthropology? Like, what are the keys to scoring such good marks? Of course, most of the things we have talked about, and maybe something about answer writing, like how important is that? Or we have already talked in the first video about the brainstorming part of it. How that can be applied in anthropology, if I may ask.
Okay, so I did brainstorming in anthropology also. How that could be done is, again, because I have a note now, I could take the PYQs and just do brainstorming.
Okay,
and then here the tricky part is, in GS, I did not have much notes. My notes were very small. But in anthropology, I did make extensive notes.
Yeah.
So now my problem is, when I'm brainstorming, my intent should not be... So let's say I get a question on marriage. My intent while brainstorming must be to bring in maximum points, connect with paper 1, paper 2, Indian, tribal, everywhere. If I just brainstorm and get some points from marriage part, and I go to 2.3 marriage, if I'm just limited there, then that is a futile exercise.
Yeah.
I need to get maximum points from all of my notes.
All of your notes.
So that becomes much more difficult because I have a very
even the caste angle of marriage, or how the tribes are doing it, or in the paper too, and how the thinkers have thought about the marriage.
Yes. So that will happen again over time. When we iterate it, then I know key, okay, when a marriage question is asked, I should not just talk about, recall all the points from my 2.3 marriage ka notes. If there is something from Indian anthropology, there are a lot of things in Indian anthropology. Let's say households are the whole thing. Arvindam Shah, all of these, Patricia Broy, all of these people studied about how family is evolving. That could be brought in to
marriage also,
right? In 2.3 paper 1. Yeah. But people do not do that. How do you actually do that? It is by brainstorming.
In fact, the socio-cultural part is not untouched from the physical also part. Like when you start the marriage as a topic, you first start why it is universal.
Yes.
Why it is a universal phenomena in human beings. You go to the biological part and then draw the conclusion into the socio-cultural part, right?
So that also, in that way also, brainstorming could help to fetch multiple points.
Yeah, whatever you know, the applying part of it can be done through the brainstorming part.
Yes. And also something else about answer writing. Again, I think we have briefly talked this in the previous video. Try not to be very mechanical when you write answer.
Yeah.
I think the problem is, a question comes on marriage. It might be a very different sort of question, but you have prepared a note on marriage. And you just mechanically copy paste.
And you have this tendency of writing whatever you know.
Yes.
You have this tendency of showing कि मेरे को सब आता है, मैंने जो याद किया मैं लिखूंगा आज paper में.
And not addressing the demand.
Not addressing the demand of the question.
So that should not be there. And again, another thing is, and this again goes back to the content part. See, marriage. Why is marriage universal, or how has marriage evolved over the years, or universal definition of marriage? We stop at Kathleen Gow, or maybe somebody else. We don't talk about homosexual marriages today.
Yeah.
We don't talk about single parent families not having marriage. We don't talk about polygamy, which happens in places individuals marrying themselves.
Yeah.
We don't talk about living relationships. All of these are required.
Because these are new social phenomena and they need to be incorporated. That's anthropology.
Because in the Topper notes there is only till Kathleen Gow, we stop there.
So that tendency is there.
Yes.
I think Benjo has clarified so many myths about the anthropology optional that we normally hear from so many students, and all the cliched stereotypes about the anthropology, and he has given it a full-fledged understanding. He has devoted enough time to this subject, and that is what has contributed to his success in this year's examination with 303 marks, which is an amazing score, and which has helped him secure this 59 rank. Thank you so much, Benjo, for such an insightful discussion on the anthropology.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.